AITA for refusing to help my brother after he inherited everything? Ever since I can remember, my brother has been my father's favorite. It's not that I was exactly mistreated, but it was always clear that he was the family's pride and joy, the one who did everything right, the one who couldn't fail. I, on the other hand, was the son who simply existed. If he got something, I got the cheaper version, or, in many cases, nothing at all. I remember when I was 8 and my brother was 10. That was the year he got a new, expensive bike for his birthday. Excited, I waited my turn 2 years later, thinking I would receive something similar. Instead, my father gave me my brother's old bike, with worn-out tires and loose handlebars. "It still works," he said indifferently. That was one of many signs of what was to come. I grew accustomed to receiving less. My brother had his room filled with posters of his favorite bands, new video games whenever he asked, and designer clothes. I had what he no longer wanted. I never completely resented him, at least not then, because I assumed that was how life was. When I dared to ask my mother why my brother always got the best, she simply told me he deserved it more. It wasn't until we got to college that the difference became even more apparent. My brother went to one of the best private universities in the country, completely paid for by my father. He had a new car and money for whatever he wanted. I, on the other hand, had to settle for a public university and work part-time to pay my expenses. And even though I busted my tail studying and working, my father never showed any interest in helping me. "You have to learn to earn a living," he'd say, while my brother spent without a care in the world. The worst of it all was when my father got sick. In his last months, I was the one by his side, taking him to his medical appointments, making sure he took his medications. Meanwhile, my brother, who lived a few hours away, barely bothered to call. I thought that, after everything I had done, I would finally receive some recognition, but no. When the will was read, I discovered that my father had left everything to my brother, everything. The family home, the money, the investments, the businesses. He left me only a handwritten letter in which he basically told me he hoped I would find my own way and that he trusted I would understand why he made that decision. I don't know what was worse, my father's disregard or the expression of superiority on my brother's face when he looked at me after the reading of the will. He didn't try to comfort me, not even pretend to hide his satisfaction. He just said, "I guess that makes it clear, doesn't it?" From that moment on, I decided to walk away. I no longer had any reason to continue enduring the same old dynamic. My brother enjoyed his newfound wealth while I worked harder than ever. I got a stable job, invested my money wisely, and over time I managed to build a decent life without anyone's help. I didn't become a millionaire, but I didn't need to be. I had enough to live comfortably, which was more than my family had ever given me. Several years passed without any contact with my brother. I didn't care what he did or how he handled his inheritance. But then, one day, I received an unexpected call. It was him. His voice sounded different, almost desperate. He said he needed my help. I looked at the phone in disbelief. It was the first time in years my brother had called me since the reading of the will. He had never made the effort to communicate with me, not even an occasional message to ask how I was doing. But now, after so long, his voice sounded anxious, as if the weight of the world was on him. I didn't answer immediately. I let the phone ring until the call dropped. A few seconds later, it rang again. This time, I decided to answer. "What's up?" I said, not hiding my indifference. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line before he spoke. "I need to see you, it's important." I suppressed a laugh. The last time we saw each other was at the lawyer's office, when he walked away with everything and I with nothing. Back then, he didn't seem to think it was important to see me. "I'm busy," I replied. "Please, just listen to me." I noticed something strange in his voice. It didn't have the usual arrogant and confident tone. Something was wrong. I decided to agree, more out of curiosity than anything else. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our cities. When I arrived, I was surprised by what I saw. My brother was no longer the same person. He looked tired, with messy hair and dark circles under his eyes. He wasn't wearing the expensive, perfectly ironed clothes he used to wear. He looked defeated. As soon as I sat down, he began to speak. "I lost everything," he said in a muffled voice. I raised an eyebrow, waiting for him to continue. I didn't know how to manage the inheritance. I invested in some businesses that failed. I spent more than I should have, and now the banks are after me. I'm in debt up to my neck. I didn't say anything. I just watched him. I sold the house a year ago to pay off some debts, but that only bought me some time. Now I'm in the red. I have nothing." He paused and looked at me with eyes full of shame. "I need help." There it was, the reason he had called me. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. Part of me felt a strange satisfaction at seeing what had happened to him. Not because I enjoyed seeing him suffer, but because it was proof that life comes full circle. But another part of me, the more rational part, knew that this was the time to act intelligently. "Let me get this straight," I said calmly. "Our father left you everything. The house, the money, the businesses. And now, after squandering it all, you come to me, the one who was left with nothing, to ask for help." He lowered his gaze, unable to meet my eyes. "I didn't know how to handle it," he admitted. "I thought the money would last longer, that I could invest it and make it grow, but I had no idea what I was doing." I almost laughed out loud. It was ironic. Throughout our lives, he had been the golden child, the one who always received the best, the one who never had to worry about anything. And now, when he finally had to fend for himself, he crumbled. "And what do you expect from me?" I asked coldly. "I know this is a lot to ask, but could you lend me some money? I don't need much, just enough to pay off some urgent debts and start over. I'll pay you back, I swear." I looked at him in silence, letting his plea hang in the air. Under any other circumstance, I might have considered it. But this wasn't any other circumstance. He had ignored me for years, treated me as if I were insignificant. And now, when he was at his lowest point, he came to me as if we were close brothers. "No," I finally said. His face froze. "What? I'm not giving you a dime. Weren't we brothers?" "We are brothers now," I retorted. "You checked on your brother? You left him with nothing when you took the entire inheritance. You didn't seem very concerned about me back then." He opened his mouth, but had no answer. "Look," I continued, "I don't wish you any harm, but this isn't my problem. You had all the opportunities one never had. If you wasted them, it's your responsibility." His desperation increased. "Please, I have no one else." I leaned towards him, looking him straight in the eye. "Learn to fend for yourself, like I had to." I took my things and got up from the table. My brother looked at me with eyes full of frustration and despair, but I had already made my decision. As I left the coffee shop, I felt something I didn't expect: relief. For the first time in my life, I had the control, and he was about to learn what it really meant to be alone. I didn't look back as I walked out of the coffee shop. I knew that if I did, if I saw his expression of desperation one more time, I might feel a twinge of guilt. But I wasn't going to fall for that game. Not this time. As I drove back home, my mind raced. I had spent my entire life in my brother's shadow, watching him receive everything I never had. And now, when he was finally down, he expected me to lift him up. I couldn't help but think about the absurdity of the situation. But what I didn't expect was what happened next. As soon as I arrived at my apartment, my phone started ringing again. It was him. I ignored the call. Then a message, then another, and another. "Please, just listen to me. I can't get out of this. Please don't be cruel, brother. I don't want to live on the street." I sighed and blocked his number. I didn't care how much he begged. I wasn't going to carry his mistakes. For the next few days, everything seemed to go back to normal. I continued with my work, with my life, without the shadow of my family intruding on my thoughts. But then, one afternoon, as I was leaving work, I saw someone waiting for me next to my car. It was him. He was thinner than the last time I saw him, with wrinkled clothes and a lost look. "How did you find me?" I asked, not hiding my annoyance. "It's not difficult if you know where to look," he replied in a dull tone. "I just want to talk. I already told you everything I had to say. Please, just give me 5 minutes." I crossed my arms and looked at him skeptically. I was tempted to tell him to leave, that I had nothing to discuss with him. But curiosity got the better of me. 5 minutes, I finally said. He leaned against the car and sighed. "I messed up," he confessed. "Not only did I lose the inheritance, but I lost everything else too. The friends I had, the people around me, they all disappeared when the money ran out. They were never real friends. They just wanted what I had." I looked at him without responding. I thought everything would be easy. I thought I'd always have more opportunities, that the money would never run out. But when it was over, I realized I never learned to do anything on my own. I don't know how to start over. I couldn't deny that hearing that gave me a little satisfaction, but it still didn't move me enough to do anything about it. "And what do you expect from me?" I asked again. "I don't want money," he said, surprising me. I just want a chance, a job, a way to start over. I was silent for a moment. Part of me didn't trust him. After all, he had always been selfish, always thought only of himself. But another part of me wondered if he had really changed. I gritted my teeth and looked at him. I have contacts, I finally said. I could help you get a job, but nothing more. Don't expect favors. Don't expect me to solve your life. His face lit up with hope. That's all I need. Don't screw it up, I warned him. Because this is the last time I give you anything. As he walked away, I couldn't help but wonder if I was making a mistake. Over the next few days, I kept telling myself that I didn't care about my brother's fate, that his life wasn't my problem. But the reality was more complex than that. Although I denied it, there was a part of me that couldn't ignore what I had seen on his face that day. It wasn't just desperation, it was fear. I knew what it meant to be alone in the world, without anyone to have your back. I had lived it for years. And, although I didn't want to admit it, there was something deeply satisfying in the idea of being the one in power now. So I made some calls. I didn't get him a dream job or a high-level position. No, what I got him was the bare minimum, a part-time job at a logistics company, unloading and organizing merchandise. If he really wanted to get ahead, he would have to prove it. I sent him a message with the information. Here's your chance. Don't waste it. He didn't reply immediately. For hours, there wasn't a single message. For a moment, I thought he had rejected it, that in his pride there was still enough arrogance to believe himself above a job like that. But the next day, I received a short message. Thank you. I'll start tomorrow. I didn't reply. I just put my phone away and went on with my day. Weeks passed without hearing much from him. I didn't ask him how it was going, and he didn't contact me either. But, through an acquaintance at the company, I learned he was doing his job. He wasn't the best employee, but at least he hadn't quit. I thought that was it, that the matter was closed. But I was wrong. A month later, I received an unexpected visit. It was my mother. I hadn't seen her since my father's funeral, hadn't heard from her in years, and yet there she was, standing at my door, with that same stern expression she always wore when she wanted to manipulate me. "We need to talk," she said in her usual tone of authority. I didn't answer her immediately. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, but the other part wanted to see what excuse she had this time. So I let her in. She sat in my living room as if it were her own house, looked around, analyzing every corner, probably assessing whether my success was worthwhile compared to her favorite son. "Your brother told me you helped him get a job," she began in a neutral voice. "So?" I asked, impatient with the small talk. She took her time before answering. "He's suffering," she finally said. "He's not made for that kind of life. Working long hours, taking orders from strangers. It's not what he should be doing." I had to stifle a laugh. "And what should he be doing then?" My mother narrowed her eyes, as if surprised by my tone. "Something better. Something more in line with his potential." "Potential," I repeated incredulously. "Mom, he lost his entire inheritance through bad decisions. He's never worked a day in his life, and now he's learning what reality is. And you're coming to tell me he's not made for this? Then what is he made for?" I gritted my teeth. I knew what was coming. "If you really want to help him," she said in that fake voice of concern, "you could give him something more, a better opportunity, a business perhaps, something where he doesn't have to be in a warehouse loading boxes." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Let me guess. You want me to support him like Dad did. You want me to be the one who solves his life." Her expression hardened. "He's your brother. And what am I?" I replied sharply. "Because when he kept everything, I don't remember anyone saying I was part of the family. I don't remember anyone asking if I was okay. That's different." "No, Mom, it's not different. Throughout our lives, he had everything, and I had to fend for myself. And now, when things are reversed, when he finally has to face real life, you come here asking me to rescue him." She was silent for the first time. She didn't have a quick answer. I leaned forward, looking her straight in the eyes. "I'm not going to do it. If you let him live with you, at least until he recovers." I let out a laugh. "So he can live at my expense? So he can be comfortable while I keep working?" "No, I already gave him a chance. And if he wastes it, it's his problem." My mother stood up abruptly. "You've always been so selfish." That was the last straw. I stood up too, feeling the rage burn inside me. "Selfish? After everything I went through? After everything you did? After you never gave me anything? After you left me out of the inheritance?" She pressed her lips together. For a second, she almost seemed to hesitate. Your brother needs help, she insisted. Then let him learn to help himself. She stared at me, evaluating me. This time it wasn't going to work. Finally, she grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Just before leaving, she turned to give me one last look of contempt. I hope you never find yourself in a situation like his. I didn't answer. I just closed the door behind her. I took a deep breath and sank into the couch. I knew this wasn't the end. I knew my family wasn't going to let it go that easily. The days passed in an uncomfortable silence. After my mother's visit, I expected another ambush at any moment. Perhaps an aggressive message, a call full of recriminations, or even an unexpected appearance by my brother at my door. But none of that happened. For a moment I thought they had finally understood that my decision was firm and that I wasn't going to let myself be manipulated. I was wrong. One Friday night, after a long week of work, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but for some reason I decided to answer. Hello. On the other end, a male voice answered. Are you the brother of? What he said next froze me. My brother had been arrested. What? I asked, sure I had misheard. He was arrested for trespassing and disorderly conduct. He's asking for someone to come and pay his bail. I put a hand to my face, feeling a mixture of rage and frustration. Where is he? I asked tensely. The officer gave me the address of the police station. I hung up the phone without saying anything else. I had two choices. Ignore him and let him fend for himself, or go see him and hear what the heck had happened. I knew what the logical choice was. I knew it wasn't my problem, but I also knew that if I didn't go, my mother would find a way to blame me for whatever happened next. So, with a deep exhale, I grabbed my car keys and left. When I arrived at the station, they took me to a small room where my brother waited with his head down. He looked even worse than the last time I saw him. His clothes were dirty, his hair disheveled, and his eyes red. I can't believe you're here, I said, crossing my arms. He didn't look at me immediately. He seemed defeated. Just listen to me, he muttered. What did you do? He rubbed his face with both hands before answering. I had nowhere to go. I was sleeping in my car until they repossessed it. I had nothing left. I tried to find another job, but no one wants to hire someone like me. Don't play the victim, I snapped. I gave you a job. What happened to that? He shrugged. It wasn't enough. I couldn't afford a place to live. I was desperate. So you decided to get into trouble with the police? He finally looked at me. His eyes were full of shame. I tried to get into Dad's old house. I froze. What? Just for one night. I wasn't planning on staying. But someone saw me forcing the lock and called the police. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You really broke into the house? He nodded slowly. I sold it a year ago, remember? It doesn't belong to you anymore. I know, but I had nowhere else to go. I rubbed my temples, feeling the anger boiling inside me. And now what? You expect me to pay your bail? He didn't answer. I laughed bitterly. I can't believe this. You spent your whole life getting everything handed to you on a silver platter. And now, when you finally face consequences, you want me to get you out of this. I don't know what to do, he muttered. I stared at him. For the first time, I saw my brother not as the spoiled child he had always been, but as someone completely broken. No money, no home, no one else to help him. But still, it wasn't my problem. I got up from the chair and looked at him coldly. Fix it yourself. His face filled with horror. No, you can't leave me here. Yes, I can. I called the officer and informed him that I would not be paying the bail. As I left the station, I heard my brother calling after me desperately, but I didn't stop. Not this time. As I walked out, I felt a strange mixture of relief and guilt. I knew I had done the right thing. I knew that if I helped him now, he would never learn. I didn't hear from my brother for a while. No more calls, no messages, not even hints from my mother trying to blame me for what had happened. Not that I thought they had given up so easily, but after what happened at the police station, I assumed they finally understood that I wasn't going to let myself be manipulated. I was wrong. A few weeks later, while checking my mail, I found an envelope with no return address. I opened it without thinking much about it, and when I saw its contents, I felt my blood boil. It was a handwritten letter from my mother. I hope you're satisfied. Your brother is living on the street because you decided to abandon him. I don't know what you've become, but it hurts me to know that I raised someone so selfish and cruel. If your father were alive, he would be ashamed of you. But I guess you don't care, do you? After all, you never wanted to be part of this family. I hope you never find yourself in a situation like his because when you do, No one will be there for you. Just as you turned your back on us. My fingers tightened around the paper. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't a request. It was pure venom. I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. I knew what she was trying to do. It wasn't the first time she had used guilt as a weapon. Throughout my life, she had tried to make me feel like I was the problem, as if I was the one who should apologize for not accepting injustice with a smile. But this time it wasn't going to work. I crumpled the letter and threw it in the trash. Days passed, and I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to my brother. Not because I felt guilty, but because I wanted to know how far he was willing to fall before admitting that the only person responsible for his situation was himself. That's when I received another call. This time, from someone I didn't expect, my uncle. He was my father's younger brother, someone I had never had a close relationship with, but I didn't have any problems with him either. I need to talk to you, he said bluntly. I agreed to meet him at a restaurant the next day. When I arrived, he was already sitting there with a worried expression on his face. It's about my brother, I asked without wasting time. He nodded. Your mother came to see me. She told me he's in a complicated situation and asked me to help him. Let me guess, I said with a bitter smile. She asked for money. My uncle sighed. More than that. She wants me to give him a job at my company. An office position with a good salary, something comfortable. I laughed, but there was no humor in my laugh. Of course, because a real job is too much for him. My uncle observed me carefully. I told her no. That took me by surprise. Really? He nodded. I know perfectly well what your brother is like. He's always had everything handed to him on a silver platter. And now that he finally has to face the consequences of his actions, instead of learning, he's looking for another easy way out. I'm not going to give him that. I was silent for a moment. So why did you want to talk to me? My uncle leaned forward. Because I want to know what you plan to do. I looked at him, confused. Do? I'm not going to do anything. Are you sure? He asked with a penetrating look. Because, even though you don't want to admit it, I know this matters to you more than you say. I felt a knot in my stomach. I hated to admit it, but he was right. As much as I tried to convince myself that I didn't care about my brother's fate, the truth was that I did. Not because I thought he deserved my help, but because, despite everything, he was still my brother. I don't know, I finally said. I don't know what to do. My uncle nodded slowly. Then think about it carefully, because he's close to hitting rock bottom. And when he does, it might be too late to help him. I remained silent while he finished his coffee and got up to leave. I spent the next few days mulling over the conversation with my uncle. His words stuck in my head like a thorn I couldn't ignore. He's close to hitting rock bottom. And when he does, it might be too late to help him. But what did that really mean? Help him how? Give him money? Pay for an apartment? Put him in a bubble so he never faced the consequences of his own decisions? No, that would only sink him further. And yet, something inside me couldn't let it go. So I decided to do something I didn't think I would do. I went looking for him. I knew I couldn't ask my mother where he was. If I called her, it would only end in another argument about my cruelty and her eternal favoritism for my brother. So I did the only thing I could do. I went to the places where I suspected he might be. I went to the few houses of old friends that I remembered, but none of them had any idea of his whereabouts. Or maybe they did, but they didn't care enough to bother telling me the truth. Finally, I found a clue at a small homeless shelter on the outskirts of town. When I arrived, I felt something in my stomach that I didn't expect. Fear. Fear of seeing him in the state he was surely in. Fear that everything I had said before, that I didn't care, was a lie. I entered the shelter and asked the manager if he knew my brother. Yeah, he's been coming here at night, he said wearily. But he hasn't come in the last few days. Do you know where he might be? The man sighed. Look, kid, I've seen a lot like him. Guys who had it all and lost it because they never learned to fend for themselves. But what I've seen most is that there are two paths for them. They either learn the lesson or they sink further. I didn't reply. If you want to find him, try the park downtown. I've seen him around there sometimes. I nodded and left immediately. When I got to the park, the sun was already beginning to set. I walked among the benches, checked under the bridges, observed the groups of homeless people gathered around makeshift bonfires. And then I saw him. He was sitting on a bench, hugging himself to ward off the cold. His clothes were dirtier than the last time I saw him. His hair was a mess, and his skin had that pale, neglected tone of someone who hasn't slept well in weeks. He looked nothing like the arrogant man who used to look at me with superiority. I approached slowly. How long are you going to keep this up? I asked bluntly. He looked up, and for a moment seemed surprised to see me. Then his expression hardened. What are you doing here? Come to make fun of me? I didn't answer. I crossed my arms. I came to see if you finally understand. He remained silent. Or do you still think the world owes you something? He looked away, ashamed. I don't know, he muttered. I just don't know how to get out of this. I sighed. You always had choices, I said firmly. But you never wanted to take them because you thought you were above all this. You thought hard work was for other people. He didn't answer. I sat down next to him and looked at him. I'm going to tell you this once, I said without looking away. I'm not going to give you anything. I'm not going to give you money, or a place to live, or get you out of this situation. I saw his expression change, as if he expected me to offer him some salvation. But if you're willing to really work, I can help you find a way. He looked at me cautiously. How? I'm not going to put you in an office, or give you an easy job, I continued. But I can help you start from the bottom, with something real, something where you have to put in the effort. He was silent for a long time. Finally, he sighed. I'll do it. For the first time in years, I felt that maybe, just maybe, my brother had changed. But still, I couldn't fully trust him. I looked my brother in the eye, looking for any sign that he was serious. Throughout our lives, he had made empty promises, said what people wanted to hear to avoid the consequences of his actions. But this time, something in his voice sounded different. If you're really going to do this, there's no turning back, I warned him. No more excuses. No more this isn't for me. He nodded slowly. I know. I wasn't entirely convinced, but I knew that if there was a chance for him to change, I had to take it right then. So I did the only thing I could do. I put him to the test. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to take you somewhere, I said. Don't ask, just show up. If you don't show up, don't come looking for me again. My brother swallowed and nodded. I'll be there. I got up and gave him one last look before leaving. I didn't offer him money. I didn't tell him where to sleep that night. I didn't try to fix his life in an instant, because I knew that if he was going to get out of this, he had to do it himself. The next morning, I waited in my car a few blocks from the park. There was a part of me that hoped he wouldn't show up, that he would stay in his misery and prove once again that he was beyond help. But when the clock struck 7 o'clock, I saw him walking towards me. His clothes were still the same as the day before. His hair was still messy, but he was there. He got into the car silently. Where are we going? He asked after a while. You're going to start working. He shifted in his seat, uncomfortable. Where? At a construction site. My brother froze. What? You heard me. I watched him out of the corner of my eye. I knew what he was thinking. I knew his ego was fighting with itself, yelling at him that he couldn't do something like that he was above a job like that. I thought you'd help me get something better. I laughed humorlessly. Better? You have no money, no experience, no nothing. This is what there is. He was silent. If you want to eat, you work. If you want a roof over your head, you work. It's that simple. He didn't say anything else on the way. When we arrived at the construction site, I parked and looked at him one last time. If you leave now, don't come looking for me again, I said coldly. But if you really want to change, go in and start. He took a deep breath, looked at the site, and after what seemed like hours, opened the car door and got out. I watched him walk to the entrance, where his supervisor greeted him with a distrustful look. Then he disappeared inside the work site. I didn't wait. I started the car and left. Weeks passed without hearing anything from him. I didn't call him. I didn't go see how he was doing. I left him alone. Until, a month later, I received a message. I'm still here. That was all it said. I didn't reply. A month later, another message. I got a place to stay. Then, more silence. Months passed before I saw him again. It wasn't planned. I was at a coffee shop when someone sat down across from me. It was him, but he wasn't the same anymore. His clothes were clean. His face had color again. His posture was firmer. His eyes were no longer filled with despair. I didn't know if you wanted to see me, he said with a slight smile. I don't know, I admitted. You should, he shrugged. That depends. I watched him, assessing him. Are you still in construction? Yeah. It's hard work, but I like it. Keeps me busy. I nodded slowly. What do you want from me? He shook his head. Nothing. I just wanted to tell you that I understand now. I didn't say anything. I know why you did what you did, and I appreciate it. I exhaled slowly. There were no grand words to say, no great reconciliation. But, for the first time in my life, I felt like we were truly brothers. You earned it, I simply replied. If you liked it, Don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.